Well, for more on this, we're joined by the Co-Chairperson of Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interest, Henni Britz. Henni, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate you joining us this evening. What is the effect of a suspension from Parliament?
Good evening. Well, when the committee recommends a suspension, it is in the hands of both houses of Parliament to adopt that recommendation. And in those instances that you've just mentioned, both houses adopted the recommendation and therefore it became effective. I should mention that in both instances, the committee recommended suspension for a certain number of parliamentary days. So in both instances, both those members are barred from attending plenaries and from committees on which they serve for the period of the suspension. Of course, the suspension is coupled with a reduction in salary in respect of both members.
Yeah. Last night on this program, I interviewed the national spokesperson of the MK party, Sifiso Mahlangu. And Henni, I want you to hear his reaction to my question about the suspension of MK Member of Parliament, David Skosana. This is what Sifiso Mahlangu had to say.
David Skosana has not been suspended from Parliament. He's suspended from a sitting of the National Assembly for a duration of time not exceeding 7 days. We accept that decision. David Skosana will be back in the National Assembly executing the responsibilities that he was elected to do, joining the 58 members of Parliament from Konto Sizwe Party in the National Assembly.
Henni, is that a correct encapsulation by the MK party of what the effect of the sanction is?
That is an interesting interpretation, but that is not in line with the recommendation of the committee and also not in line with the recommendation that was adopted by the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces in that instance.
Yeah. Let's talk about how a sanction comes about. Do members of the committee vote on the appropriateness of the sanction?
It's not always necessary for a vote. Normally, we find consensus in the committee on the recommendation as presented to the committee by the registrar of the committee. So it is not necessary normally for a vote in the committee. The registrar will recommend a sanction and the committee will deliberate on that sanction, and normally the committee finds consensus on a sanction to be recommended.
Yeah. Importantly, can you describe to us what the committee reflected on the severity of these transgressions? In the very first instance, I want to talk about the transgression of David Skosana on the non-disclosure or the incorrect disclosure, whichever word is befitting there, of his directorship in a company in his disclosure of members' interests.
Let's start with that portion of the code that deals with members' interests. Now, in terms of the code, each and every member of Parliament must disclose and fully disclose all their interests that they possess. In the instance of Mr. Skosana, he was a first offender, and the code makes provision for first offence. The current applicable fine is one of 10,000 rands and a reprimand in the House. But the code also provides that in the instance of a second or third offence or transgression, the sanction will increase and the committee will recommend to Parliament to impose a higher sanction than that for a first offence. So
This seems like the sort of, Henni, this seems like the sort of offence a member would have an opportunity to remedy. That is to say, if I forgot that I was a director in a company, perhaps that company had somewhat gone dormant, and the committee says, well, you didn't declare this, we've pulled up your CIPC records, and here it is. And I then rectify that ex post facto. does the committee consider that to be remedial enough to suspend the sanction itself?
No, no. Each and every member of Parliament during the induction phase of Parliament after inauguration received training from the registrar herself, what is expected of each and every member. So, and then annually, when the members come and declare, the staff as well as the registrar is on site and on hand to assist members to compile their interests. So no member can have the excuse that they were not aware. That is not going to.
And just lastly, can you expound for us on the facts surrounding the transgression for which Fadil Adams had been sanctioned for?
In the instance of Mr. Adams, that was his second offence for a similar transgression. The first transgression was for the misuse of a social media platform. In that instance, it was Facebook. And again, the second transgression, a few months later, was again for the misuse of the social media platform, whereby it brought Parliament into disrepute. So in the instance of Mr. Adams, we treated him as a repeat offender, as a repeat transgressor, and therefore a harsher penalty and sanction was recommended to Parliament, and of course both houses of Parliament adopted the recommendation in respect of sanction in respect of Mr. Adams.
Well, Henni, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Henni Britz is the co-chairperson of Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interest in Parliament.